You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. And look, if you need more leads and deals for your real estate investing business and getting them online, you know where to go. It's AdWordsNerds.com. You can jump on a phone call with our team for free. We will help you put together a strategy for your market and your business. This week, I've got a great interview for you. I'm talking to Mike Deaton from DeatonEquityPartners.com. And if you don't know Mike, he is this really fun, really intelligent, really like well-spoken, well-thought-through guy who transitioned from really big corporate work. I mean, you're thinking about working with Nokia, working with Microsoft, these giant companies, into investing in land and then doing apartment syndication, working with investors, helping them find passive cash flow for the rest of their lives. Mike is an incredibly insightful person with a really fun story. I know you're going to get a bunch out of our interview. So without any further ado, let's jump into my interview with Mike Deaton. All right, everybody, what's up? I'm here with Mike Deaton from Deaton Equity Partners. What is up, Mike? Thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Dan. It's great. I love coming on and sharing a little message.
Yeah, well, I want to make sure to shout out before we even get into things. So if you are listening to this, you definitely are going to want to check out the stuff that Mike is doing. I'm just going to go ahead and spoiler alert, you're going to want to go ahead and check it out. You can go to DeatonEquityPartners.com/freedom. So that's DEATON. equitypartners.com/freedom. That's the landing page for your podcast, you were saying?
Yeah, we tried to make that like a one-stop shop, right? So instead of giving out social links, email contacts, lead magnets, all that stuff, it's all right there. So, we'll talk about a little bit of stuff today, kind of what we do. We have links to various aspects of how we generate cash flow and some things we're interested in. So it's just makes it easier for people to go and figure out what exactly they want to dive into.
All right. Well, this is really good. So just keep that in mind, DeatonEquityPartners.com/freedom, because you are involved in a lot of things. I was actually trolling through your LinkedIn, and I have other stuff I want to ask you about too. It's not even real estate related. So we're gonna
Cool.
see if we get there. We are going to see if we get there. But let's start with you and a little bit of your backstory. So obviously, Deaton Equity Partners is the company that you run. That's your connection to real estate investing, all that good stuff. Tell me what got you into real estate, right? We talked a little bit before. I know your background was primarily sort of the corporate world, right? So what was your sort of on-ramp into real estate?
Yeah, it's a great story. And I think everybody in real estate that I talk to has one. And there are some common themes, but, for me, I grew up fairly middle America normal. My dad was actually a home builder. He was a general contractor. So I had an early taste of real estate. There was good and bad in that. He started building during the 80s. We got into the savings and loan crisis. Big box home builders really started taking off around then.
Yeah.
And he was building a little different, he liked to customize his homes, woodwork, different stuff. So he got out at that point, but I grew up my teenage years working for him. Essentially, I was, cleaning houses, masonry, roofing, whatever needed doing, right? It was, hey, go do this. So, I had an early taste of it. I don't think until I really started doing some interviews like this that it resonated that may have had some draw for me later. But yeah.
How old were you when you were doing that work with him?
I was 13 to 17, as early as he felt comfortable, he put me behind a lawnmower and said, hey,
not the prime age for thinking that anything your dad does is cool, right? That's not that's not the age where you're like, yeah, the old man really knows some things. It's like that.
Yeah. My my ideologies or my imprints, really, my dad was always an entrepreneur of various sorts, and it was really interesting. But I, for whatever reason, followed the path of, get good grades in high school, get into university, get a degree, get a W-2 job, climb the corporate ladder, or do something of that nature, have a retirement plan. And that was really my model of the world. And I don't know, exactly why or how that came to be, but just my influences on that path were stronger. And so I graduated and was really a bit lost. And I just got into the world of tech. I happened to get in with Motorola when Motorola was big. We were in manufacturing. It was a huge playground for me. Like the management team there was very open to allowing you to do whatever you wanted to do. We had a lot of training and mentoring and capabilities. And I rolled from there into Nokia mobile phones when they were kind of big of the mobile phone world.
Yeah.
Spent a long time with Nokia. They were an amazing company to work for. And then Microsoft bought a portion of Nokia, and I went to Microsoft as part of that acquisition and spent many years working there. And most of my career was either in operations or more broadly in supply chain. And so I just, that was it for me. And I had a lot of success. Like I was able to stay interested in different jobs and learn different disciplines of that world. A lot of promotions, a lot of stock options. I mean, all the carrots were there to keep me plugging down that path until about 2016. I was living in Dallas, Fort Worth. Microsoft's based out of Washington. My career, were it to continue, really needed to be in Washington if I was going to stay with Microsoft. I was a bit burned out, a lot of travel, a lot of fires on a daily basis, and so that summer 2016 there was a layoff, and I found my way onto the layoff list, and so found myself out of work. My wife also found herself out of work at about the same time for different reasons. And yeah, we were there. We had, mortgage, two girls approaching college age. Panic sets in. I got to get a job. And so I started sending out resumes and got some quick interviews with other high tech companies. And I was a bit nauseous at the thought of interviews and potentially relocating, and what kind of company culture am I going to walk into? And is there really job security in all of these things? And so, I had recently read Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad again. I had cash flow lodged in the back of my mind in terms of, hey, what can we do to generate some cash flow? Yeah. I had also purchased a land investing toolkit of sorts that was teaching how to, essentially flip land, buy low, sell high. I hadn't looked at it because I've been working a W-2 job, and it was one of those things like, I'll get around to it later. And so we took that moment to really dig in, instead of jumping right back into the rat race, to take a moment and reflect on, what resources do we have at our disposal? What do we really want out of the rest of our lives? What kind of lifestyle do we want to live? What values resonate with us, and how do we live those? And so in that moment, we were able to conceptualize a different lifestyle. We gave ourselves a chunk of money, which thankfully we had, some disposable income. And so we said, hey, let's take some seed money, let's put it in this land investing business, and let's give ourselves 6 or 12 months to give this a go. And so we kind of dove in there. I'll fast forward a little bit, but after 3 years of building that business into a very successful income generator, we were looking for tax breaks. And so we expanded into commercial real estate and decided multifamily was the lane that we wanted to start in the commercial real estate space, for diversification, but also for tax advantages, right? So to be able to write off depreciation and offset our other income, which was real estate related. And so we were able to really leverage real estate professional status, take a lot of depreciation and amplify, or at least keep more of what we were earning in our pocket rather than pay it out in taxes. But, so I would say a combination of factors, circling back to your question, is really just Robert Kiyosaki, which so many people I talk to have that as an impetus in their background in terms of, jumping into real estate. So that seed of getting on the entrepreneurial side of the equation, ideally in real estate, as well as just, I had been exploring, right? I listened to a couple of podcasts. I had heard some people that were investing in land. They were making crazy returns on their investments. And it piqued my interest. And, those seeds, together with the, I would say, push of not having a job, really, my personality is such that I'm really an all-in type of person. Like when I'm working W-2 world, I am all into that world, right? I mean, I'm giving them everything I have. And I really needed to, burn the boats, as they say, I don't know that I would have been as successful had I tried to straddle both worlds and start a side hustle while I was working a main hustle. It's just not, it would have been harder for me. For a lot of people, that's a very workable strategy, and one that I would encourage, quite frankly, unless you have certain ingredients set up. But, for me, it was having that time, the motivation, and, the hunger to make something really, really work. And I think that helped contribute to, us digging in. I will also say, I'm a person that believes all of your life experiences leading up to this moment have served you. And so, I'm super thankful for my time in corporate America. It gave me the capabilities to really be strong in operations and business management, such that we run our businesses today very much with that discipline. So we're able to look at, what are our key metrics, looking at our finances, setting strategies, following different execution plans, and all that kind of stuff. Really, I think helps accelerate us. But yeah, for us, there was a little bit of luck, a little bit of planning. Different things that pushed us into real estate, and it's
serendipity too, right? So there's so many things I want to talk about, but you just kind of hit on one. So I'm going to come to this because this is like a pet interest of mine, and I'm going to selfishly commandeer the podcast and ask about this.
It's yours, man.
I'll bring it back to real estate investing. So one of the things, I got a bunch of questions. I actually want to go back to you and your wife sitting down and asking yourselves, what do you really want? Right? Like being in that moment where you both got laid off at the same time, which is wild, right? Yeah. It happens, I know, all the time, but it's weird to think about, right? And then really taking the presence, having the presence of mind to sit down and do that. So when you sat down to think through that problem, how did you guys do that? Did you literally sit down with a piece of paper and say, let's write out our dreams, have a bucket list? What does that process look like in that moment for you guys? Or if you wanted to attack it a different way, if you were going to do that again today, how would you do that?
Yeah, I would probably have a more refined process today, just having been through it, and also some of life experience in that last 5 years. But yeah, for us in that moment, there was obviously, and I've had the unfortunate experience of being on the other side of that equation, having worked in the corporate world for 20, 25 years, where I have had to lay people off many times. And I know that story and that routine. And regardless of how prepared you are for it, it's a gut punch, when it comes. And so there is some amount of time, shorter, longer for others, where you are just, the wind's knocked out of you and you're like, holy shit, what am I going to do? And so, there was that processing. And in my case, I had some dialogue with my boss, and it was somehow mutual type of understanding, but still the realization comes that, all right, I have no more money coming in, which, is honestly one of the fantastic elements of my life today. Is I do have a cash flow stream that is going to come in regardless for some amount of time, whether I'm working at any given moment or not. If I get sick or if something happens, my wife and I went to Europe for a month earlier this year, and things like that. But yeah, in that moment, we processed a little bit. My immediate reaction, like I said, was, all right, resume, polish it up, get out there, network, shake the trees. Who do I know? Who's working? And so, I was able to get some interviews very quickly. But for me, it was listening to my inner voice that was just sick. It was like, some of these large companies are just, a little soulless, I mean, they get you in and they're just, you're a tool. Like I said, I've had the fortune to work at some great companies where I was supported, I was developed, I had opportunities, a lot of great things, but I've also worked in some really grinding out environments. And so, it was in that moment, and I'll credit my wife for, listening and hearing a lot of what I was saying, and having the ability and the desire to support trying something different. And my wife's Romanian. She grew up under communism. She has an incredible story herself, but she's coming from a totally different place where she has a lot more comfort in the unknown, or in giving things a chance and trying certain things. And so, that support really helped a lot. But as far as the process, yeah, I mean, we did some exercises. We sat down and we said, one of the exercises I like to do is looking back from forward in your life, whether it's end of life or it's late in life, or, taking a long-term view of perspective on what do I want to be remembered for? What kind of person do I want to be? What accomplishments do I want to have made? And they're generally not, I want to have worked, a 60-hour work week and, worked for somebody else. And so coming at it from that angle, as well as we did some values exercises where we brainstormed, what values resonate with us. We did some rank choicing to find out which ones were top of mind for us and more important than others. So there were some tangible, actual exercises that we sat down and tried to do that really all pointed towards entrepreneurship and being our own boss and really setting our own course and not being, I grew up with the mindset that working for an employer was safety. And,
right.
It's not so much the case anymore. Now, I do think I probably got a lot of my mindset from like my grandfather. He worked for General Dynamics for, I don't know, 50 years, retired with a pension. My other grandfather worked for the airlines, same thing, worked for decades, retired with a pension. My maternal grandmother, she worked in a bank and she rose to a senior vice president and, retired with, and she was always drilling in savings accounts and CDs and different things. And so it's just not so much the case in today's world, right? I mean, there are quarterly shareholder reports, and we've got to do layoffs and those kind of things. And so all of those things really pushed us into, let's try something. Life also allowed us to do that, right? We had some money in the bank. I got a payout from being laid off. College for my daughters was set aside. We were empty nesting. There were a lot of factors that presented themselves that gave us a little more security in saying, okay, let's give this a try. Worst case, it doesn't work. We go back and we get jobs, or we try something out. So we had a runway to work with. But yeah, I mean, there were days of active exercises and just trying to explore that. And like I said, in addition, I already had this toolkit that I'd explored, and it had piqued my interest, and there was an ecosystem built around that. So it's a guy, Mark Podolsky. He has a program called Land Geek, and it's an educational environment where they have workshops and coaching and different things. And so we were able to plot a course to give something a go. But there were a lot of factors that came in, but there was also a lot of giving ourselves room to even conceptualize something different, because, like I said, my immediate reaction was, wow, I got to get right back on the horse, and get going. And
yeah,
I think for so many people, that's what So you just get back in. And it's a big part of, today, why we really want to share our message, allow others the opportunity to create their own financial freedom and plot their own course, should that be what they want to do.
Yeah. I love how, you're talking about really projecting yourself into the future and kind of looking backwards and basically asking yourself, like, where do I want to end up?
Yeah.
Right. And I think it reminds me of, Dan Kennedy is sort of the classic direct marketing, old crotchety guy, but amazing, just amazing teacher in terms of teaching that kind of marketing. I remember him saying once, he said, the way that entrepreneurs fail themselves is they build a house they don't like. And he's like, it's really easy to build a business you hate. It's really easy, right? All you got to do is just kind of don't pay attention and it'll happen automatically, right? So I love the idea of kind of looking back. Now, speaking of looking back, you like that segue? Look at that. That's amazing. Speaking of looking back, I actually want to ask a little bit about something you referenced earlier, which was when you've done this thing where you sort of transitioned out of these really large, Microsoft, Nokia, like we're talking big companies, right? Very specific environment. You transitioned into this entrepreneurial environment, but you had this skill set that kind of transferred over. Like I saw in your background, I think you have Six Sigma in your background, right? You have supply chain stuff, which is like, I was referencing, like, that's like my pet interest. Like I'm fascinated by supply chain stuff. I'm actually scheduled to take a theory of constraints supply chain. So it's gonna be like a 2-week course. My wife was like, why are you signed up for this? And I was like, I honestly don't know. I couldn't tell you, but like, I just think it's cool. Like they're going to show me how to get the Coke to the gas station from the warehouse. And she was like, this is literally the most boring thing you've ever done. Yeah. But I love that stuff because to me, it feels like a really valuable set of mental models that you can apply to a lot of different things, right? So I'm curious, when you started shifted environments to this really entrepreneurial environment, what did you find really served you or helped you from your past sort of experiences with these larger companies or these sort of different skill sets? Like, what was really useful to you in this kind of real estate world that you're in now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as I touched on earlier, for me, I had risen to upper management levels in these different disciplines. And as part of that, a lot of the responsibility is going through a regular cycle of strategy, taking that strategy and matriculating it down into actual projects and actions, and then into the measures to make sure you're on the right track to get there, and then just iterating that quarterly, annually, whatever. And so for me, it was a place of comfort to be able to look at, where we wanted to be as a business and take that from a conceptual level all the way into tangible activities. And so, we do that. We'll have an annual planning cycle. We'll review it and renew it quarterly. We'll translate that into, there's a book that we read early on called The 13-Week Year. And it's essentially running your business in quarters, taking what most people will look at on an annual cycle and truncating that down into a 13-week cycle, such that you don't get 11 months into the year and then go, wow, I'm really not on track to this goal that I set. And so, we boil things down into weekly activities. And there's also a lot of good books on, the one thing, other different things where, you focus on the most important things. But, I would say most importantly, that's just given us a great structure, a routine, a way of tracking, revising, adjusting course, and getting things to a success level before they drift way off course. And so, really it's just operations and business management, like I said, of that, all of that infrastructure that goes into business management, let's say. And I didn't have a business background. I mean, honestly, when I went through my background, I went to school, I was going to be a doctor. And so I went pre-med, and I got about 3 years into it and decided it really wasn't for me for various reasons. And so I was 80% into a program. And I just said, okay, well, I'm going to graduate with a biology degree. And so I graduated with a biology degree, but it's not a whole lot you could do with that.
Right. You're going to get huge in the biology industry, which is, you're in the lab or
I was a generation too early, maybe, now that we have biotech and a lot of different things there. But I was a bit lost. And like I said, I found my way into manufacturing and operations just by happenstance and some networking. And so all of that, and like I said, I worked for some great companies, and they instilled a lot of really solid business practices. I did go back and get my master's in business, and so I also had that to leverage. But it was just coming at running a business from that angle. has allowed us to, I think, accelerate our growth into where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me, right? It's like so much of business is process. It's not so much content as it is process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're in an environment of uncertainty, which anything economic almost always is, and you are almost by definition, you're going to be wrong a bunch of the time. But if you have a process that just gets you back on track, sooner or later, you get to where you need to be. And it strikes me as like, that must have been like such a valuable just kind of framework to have in mind when you're going from Microsoft to land investing, right? It's a pretty big jump for most people.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed part 1 of this episode. It's just too good to limit to one show. Join us next week to hear the rest.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.